Welcome to this week's episode of Success and Women. I'm Linda.
And I'm Andrea.
And we're here to share a really interesting topic, ladies. I think it's going to amaze you in the sense of what you can do with this. So you have to stay tuned because until then, Andrea's got a tip for you.
Well, I was online the other day and I saw a really good tip. If you're having a party or a gathering and you have things that need to be kept chilled and dips or fruit or whatever. So, the large tinfoil containers that you can buy at the dollar store. So you get the large one and you fill it about 3/4 with water and you freeze it. Then when you're ready to serve, you take it out and with the other smaller aluminum foil containers, you can put in your, say, potato salad, macaroni salad, whatever, or shrimp. You just sit it on top of the ice. And there you have it. And that ice block will stay pretty firm for a long time.
I love it because it's the thing that I always worry about whenever I'm actually getting food off some kind of a buffet.
Exactly.
When it comes to things that I'm a little more nervous about, things like fish, seafood, shrimp,
or even like a
salads.
charcuterie board. You put the board on top and then you put all your cheeses and your meats. And I thought that was an excellent idea. Great tip.
Great tip. Well, that's great, Andrea. Okay, today we're going to be talking about ancestries and the reasons why you might want to delve a little more into your family background. It's one thing for your parents to tell you, who your grandparents were and a little bit about your family, but until you actually find out with your DNA, you're not necessarily sure of all of your ancestries. And in some cases, there's been times where people feel a little different and they want to know a little more, and you're not necessarily going to get the answers from your parents. But if you decide to take an ancestry test, you might find it's more fulfilling to find out a little bit more about your background, and maybe that will help you to move forward, in whatever endeavors that's been holding you back because you've always felt a little different. And I know, Andrea, you've actually done that. And if you want to kind of share your experience and why you actually ended up doing it. And
back in the 40s and the 50s when the war was ending and all the sailors and people were coming home, there was a lot of hanky-panky going on. And I find with that generation, there was a lot of children that were maybe one parent or a lot adopted out. And I happened to be one of those children. My mother obviously brought me up, but my biological father did not. I never knew who he was. I really didn't care. My stepfather was the salt of the earth. I was very blessed. But later on in life, things pop up, like they want to know your health background in certain areas when you're having children or whatever, and you want to know for your children. But I didn't. I had my mother's side, but I didn't have my father's side. And when I went for a passport, that was another issue because I was always, my mother put me under her maiden name. So I grew up with my stepfather's name, but I had nothing legal in his name. So I had a little bit of a problem there. So we sorted that out. And so there's different reasons why you might want to go and enroll in this ancestry program. I never wanted to, I never cared, but my children did. So for Christmas one year, they bought me the kit. I sent it away and sure enough, it came back. And then I'm very interested, and I found 2 half-brothers. I found a lot of cousins and I have hooked up with a few. Unfortunately, one of my half-brothers had passed away about 6 months before I got all this information. Now, I since connected with his wife and some other family members, so it's been very interesting. And a couple of first cousins, and I found out that I'm almost 100%, like 80-some% Irish, which I didn't really know. And I met, I've hooked up on Facebook with a lot of them, and so it's been interesting and fun, and I hope one day to even meet some of them. But I know for some people that have been, like some of those people that I met were actually adopted out.
Oh.
And so they're really reaching out. And I find some people they always have an emptiness, and they're not sure why. And when they figure this out and they meet family, sometimes adopted children feel either abandoned by the parents that gave them up, or they don't feel 100% loved by the parents that took them because they're not biological. They're probably all unfounded, like especially for the parents that have to give up a child, because back in the day, they had no choice. The parents, now it's more acceptable to be a single parent, but not back then.
Yeah.
So a lot of them were forced to give up their children, and it was very heart-wrenching for them. And so these children should really know that. These adopted children should know.
Yeah, well, I have a friend that she actually was in, not quite she wasn't in your situation, but she was in where there are a lot of people that ended up going up for adoption. And so she was placed up for adoption by her mom, and she was an only child with her adoptive parents. One of these friends of hers recently got her introduced to doing the ancestry, and what she found out was she's got a full, I believe it's a full half brother, or it's a full brother. It's very interesting. Wow. Because she was the older one and she was put up for adoption, and I think what she said was her parents got together and then they had the brother.
Oh, okay.
But she was already up for adoption. Oh. And she has recently connected with that person, and she said it's made all the difference for her because now she's, a bit older than us, but she had no family. Right. And her family has always been her friends. So she's got no parents, no siblings, no nothing. Now that she's met up with her brother, she said what's really nice about it, because he's got 3 kids, he's got a wife, and she feels like part of a family now. Exactly. And they just really bonded.
Beautiful.
And they, he lives in the States where she lives in Canada, and it didn't seem to make a difference, not in distance or anything else. They started communicating, but she feels like she belongs now. And perfect. Interestingly enough, he has about 4 sisters.
Wow, so they're half or...
Well, they're not really connected to her, she said, but she feels a little bit part of that group because they are connected to her brother.
Her brother. And that's the whole thing. If you feel something's missing, or you're very, very curious as to your family background, it's a great thing that they offer, and it's not expensive. Like the initial DNA test is not expensive, and you get the information. Now, if you want to delve really into it, into your, hundreds of years ago, I think there's an added charge or something, but I just wanted it for my, the health, because they do give you very good information about, they can't say right on, but the likeliness of you getting this or that or this or that really, from your DNA line.
That's really good.
Yeah. So I got all that, and my daughters were happy about it because I pretty well got a clean bill of health. And then of course the family background. And
but you were also mentioning to me, Andrea, that you have a cousin that always felt a little bit like she didn't quite belong, that there was something different about her compared to her siblings.
Yes.
And she ended up doing the testing with the ancestry.
With the ancestry, and she found out that yes, she did have a different father, and she knew it all along. She felt it. And it disrupted her life.
But her parents did split up. Like,
yes.
They had at some point after that, they had split up.
Yeah.
But it was before that where she thought it was her mom and her dad, and found out that her dad wasn't her dad.
And it really disrupted her life. Like for me, I never felt that. I never felt unloved or whatever. My father, like I said, my stepfather was my father. And but she always felt something. And her other siblings were like, no, you're crazy. But sure enough, it plagued on her mind. Wow. But then when she found out her father was alive and well, and her brother, and she got to meet them, and that made her so happy. So if you're wondering about that, if you have feelings of emptiness and you have been adopted, or you do have a step parent, just go ahead and do it. You never know what what will the surprises you'll find.
Well, and I think the thing is as well, when you have this uncertainty in your life, sometimes you feel that you might not be good enough. You feel like, depending on where your situation was in your younger years compared to where it is now, but something is always holding you back. And you don't know whether or not having this more information, this additional information, would help you to start moving forward in, I'm going to say, a new life in the sense of acceptance. Even if you find out that, no, this is your family, and these are your brothers, these are your parents, and this is your background, and it was all the things that your parents told you that you weren't quite sure. Because I remember as a kid, I always thought I was adopted. I literally always felt like I was different, and mostly because I come from a family of 7 kids, and I'm the middle child. By the time I was born, there were 2 older brothers, an older sister, and then me. And I didn't have any pictures that I could ever see when I was a baby. And I'm like, well, who doesn't have baby pictures, right? And, you know, people always take a lot of pictures. And back then it was real pictures. So I'm rifling through pictures all the time. And not until I went to school, you know, we always had our school pictures.
Yeah.
But I never really saw a lot of pictures of me. And I used to always think, no way, I must not have been born into this family. And one day, my aunt and uncle had given my parents a video that they had taken when they were on vacation. They were from the U.S. They came to Canada, and we lived across the street from a lake. So they went out for a boat ride and everything else. And my uncle was the photographer. And so he had taken a video of the family going out on this boat ride.
I hope you were there.
I was there as a baby. And actually, they were fooling around, and it almost looked like they were tossing me over. But the point was, that was the first time I'd ever seen a picture of myself, and it was a video.
But the funny thing about it all is you look so much like your parents. It's
my mom,
unbelievable. But
I mean, my mom would be my mom.
Yeah.
But well, maybe
not necessarily.
That's actually, you're right, because I actually was thinking I didn't come from my parents at all. But then why would they adopt me? I mean, my goodness, they had a lot of kids and still continue to have more.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those things that sometimes you just feel different.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you do feel that way, you hold yourself back because you think that you don't really fit in. You don't fit in at work. You don't fit in. You know, like, why should you be successful, maybe running your own business or whatever? Sometimes you need to have that additional information just to make you feel like, I do belong.
This is who I am.
This is who I am. And when you got to meet very successfully some of your family members, it was great. But like you said earlier, when we were talking in private, you're not going to necessarily go reach out to people that don't want to bring up the past.
That's right. That's one thing about Ancestry. So they do give you a list, and they're always adding to it. You're always getting new family members, of course, because people are doing the Ancestry. And I must have like 4,000 relatives out there, like right down to 5th and 6th cousins. And wouldn't that be fun to meet everybody? But yeah, so it's all private. So if you want to reach out, there's a little spot where you can leave a message. Hi, da da da. You know, I'd like to find out more. Or they can message you. You can answer if you want. You don't have to answer if you don't want. You don't even have to say where you're from or anything. So it's very private. So, and it's a good place to, you know, find family members. And a lot of people want to. And some people maybe not. Maybe it's stirring up a pot you don't want to stir.
Exactly, because not everybody is open with their past, and
that's right.
That would be something that they want to keep private.
Especially back in those days.
Yes, especially back in those days. And so you don't want to draw, like stir the pot.
No.
But on the other hand, if somebody's open or something inside you feel like, okay, now you have the information, but maybe you don't really want to take it any further yourself.
It's enough to know.
It's enough to know.
Yeah.
And that's a good way to put it. It's just enough to know where you came from.
Right.
And maybe just knowing that, it will help you, again, in your road to success, and even in your own family. You know, just being able to, whatever it is that you're doing with your own family, and knowing and making your own kids.
Talk about your past. Like, you know, some people who are adopted, they might, you know, the kids might say, hey, where are we from? And you say, well, I don't really know, I don't know my parents. Well, now you can know. You
Right.
can know your past, where you came from, and ancestries 100 years ago. It'll tell you all of that.
Wow. I
And
mean,
that's fun.
I think it's great, but you have to do it under the right circumstances. You're not supposed to really go on there and make trouble for other people
That's
that are
right.
not interested in, I'll say, bringing up the past. Because for some people it would be very difficult, especially because they've moved on in their life, but that doesn't take anything away from you.
That's right.
You are still who you are. You know a little bit more about where you came from. You might not know exactly the circumstances of why you may have been given up for adoption, or the situation. In your case, your mom is your mom, but your father wasn't. But when you have a good family upbringing, it doesn't matter who the sperm donor was.
Exactly.
What you want is the guy that was there through thick and thin, sickness and in health,
and
to be
that's
there
what
as a
and
parent.
that's who my stepfather was. And
Yeah.
a funny thing, because I was the oldest, and then there was 5 after me of my stepdad's children, and until I was maybe 10 or 12, I had no idea that I was
Different.
and different until my school friends started saying, Andrea, you don't look like your brothers and sisters. Are you adopted? I'd say, what? No, I'm not adopted. See, but that's how wonderful my father was,
Yeah.
that I never felt that.
Yeah.
And then when I went to Nova Scotia one year and met my stepfather's sister,
Oh.
I said to her, I told my cousin that I think I'm adopted. And she goes, no way, no way. And she marched right into her mother's room and, is Andrea adopted? and my aunt said, no. I said, well, why am I so different? And then so she sat me down and gave me a little history. And that was the first I knew. And I really had no idea. So I'm so thankful for my
And quite
stepfather.
stable.
Yeah.
All things considered, right?
Yes, exactly.
Finding out that shock.
Yeah.
That your father wasn't your father. But really, that's not what makes a father.
Exactly.
And as I said, you can have any sperm donor, but that doesn't make him a parent.
No, and my
Yeah.
dad, he was my dad.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. Anyway, so we hope we've given you just a little bit of insight into finding out more about yourself if it's something that you want to do. Because the DNA, I mean, this is like amazing what science can do.
Oh, yes.
And it might be helpful, again, not to stir the pot, but just to find out a little bit more about why you are who you are. And I love the fact, Andrea, that you said it also can tell you a little bit more about health issues, because maybe you are going through something, and that would be something I would want to know.
Exactly.
Because it might help you.
Like a history of breast cancer.
Absolutely.
Or for men, prostate cancer. It can kind of give you that.
Yeah, because you'd want to maybe be a little bit more proactive in your testing and everything else, and not think that, you're okay with all that when it runs in the family.
Exactly.
You don't want the surprises. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, until next week, ladies, this is Linda.
And Andrea,
And don't forget to
share,
like.
and please subscribe.
We can't do it without you, ladies.
Exactly.
So this is Success in Women. We do it for you. Until next time.